The president of Black Lives Matter in Brooklyn and Medgar College Professor Wallace Forde will be joining me in less than a minute to talk about the challenges that hundreds of thousands of people who are marching with and supporting Black Lives Matter are still fighting for. Also in this program, our host of Young Academic Achievers, Alonta Wrighton, will be chatting with Brooklyn High School student Jordan Milar. Reggie Brown will have a report he calls Wake Up. Well, Black Lives Matter supporters across America are all asking Americans to wake up. My guests are Anthony Beckford, president of Black Lives Matter in Brooklyn, and Medgar Professor Dr. Wallace Forde. Welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
My first question is coming to you, Anthony. And that question is, are the demands that are being made by Black Lives Matter, are those demands being met?
Some of the demands are being met, especially city and state here in New York. Within the first week of our protests, we've had 11 bills that have been sitting on the desk of these legislators in the state from 2 to 10 years now. Were signed, all together. It was a package of bills. The governor has also done executive orders based off a lot of our demands. So that shows the power of the people. Just today, 6 bills were signed by Mayor de Blasio. One of them was the chokehold ban, which also the state has as well too. We made them sign. And these are common sense bills that should have been put in place from before, that should have been signed, but the pressure that we've put on them, all these elected officials from city and state, it shows the power of the people. It shows the power of the movement. We're not going to stop. There's still more demands that we do have when it comes to police accountability, when it comes to the judicial reform, when it comes to agency reform within the city, because there's other agencies that play a big part but have not been highlighted in the media as well. We're gonna stay consistent, but we're also pushing to remove some of these electeds from their positions as well, because we know the difference between pandering to us for votes and actually standing with the people. And there's very few that's still with the people, but the rest of them, we're going to start pushing actually candidates from within the movement itself to actually get our demands met on a timely basis.
President Trump has been calling Black Lives Matter. He's been calling your organization a symbol of hate. I want to hear from both you and Wallace about that accusation. Wallace, let's hear from you first.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, when Black Lives Matter is called a symbol of hate by Donald Trump, all I say is to consider the source. The man, when he can't open his mouth without lying. He can't open his mouth without, distributing hate and misinformation. He's a sociopath, and you really shouldn't listen to him, which is a mental condition. And you really you shouldn't pay a lot. You have to pay attention to him because, of course, he is president of the United States, but you can't, take his words seriously because, again, he is a sociopath. He will say just about anything. He has no belief system at all. And but let me just say, one of the real traditions with respect to the whole notion of the civil rights movement, and I would just say from an historical standpoint, from the very first time, the first African who came in to this country in 1619 and maybe in 1620 said no to whatever it was, that's when the civil rights movement started. Okay, and we have a tradition of activism. Sometimes history gets skewed, and we start saying, well, it didn't really start until Rosa Parks said no. This has been going on. Black people have resisted. Black people have advocated for freedom, for humanity from the very beginning. Okay, and I would submit that Black Lives Matter is another iteration of that. We had the Black Power movement. We have a Black Power movement, which now we're trying to call it Black Lives Matter. A rose by any other name is still a rose. What we're talking about is liberation. We're talking about freedom, and most important, the establishment of the humanity of Black Americans. Of Black people in this country. All that has been done to Black people all that we have suffered, and even to this very day, with disparities in health statistics or economic statistics, education, incarceration, and so on, comes because we have still treated institutionally as the other. Okay, if there's no way that if the incarceration rate for young white men was what it is for young black men, that this country would not have a response. And for those who might question that, I just look at the opioid epidemic. When we had the crack,
I'm gonna hold you there, but I know you sound as though you're lecturing.
Well, all right. Well, let me just finish real quickly. Okay, which is just to say in direct response to your question, which is that when Donald Trump starts talking about Black Lives Matter as a hate group, it is because that has been a traditional response of white institutions. When black people stand up, somehow we hate them. Okay, but when they beat us and abuse us, somehow that's not hate. And so we've got to change the paradigm. And I give all the props in the world to Brother Beckford and to everybody in the Black Lives Matter movement for carrying on the battle, which is a 400-year battle. I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Anthony, your very short response to this symbol of hate accusation.
I definitely agree with everything that Brother Forde stated. But in regards to like Donald Trump, direct message to him is the fact of that, you cannot call somebody a symbol of hate when you are the mouthpiece of hate. When we put that mural in front of his tower the other day, that was to basically place it at the seat of powers, but also the seat of power of hate, bigotry, and racism in this country. And his name reflects that 100%. As I call him, the Grand Wizard of the White House. So that was a message to him and all his supporters that no longer will we tolerate the bigotry, the lies, the criminalization, and the demonization of black people. Because him saying that we are a symbol of hate is his racist rhetoric.
But when he was running for president, he was saying that he's better for black people than President Obama.
What he said was that he knows the blacks. Like, I don't know which blacks he know, but it wasn't these blacks and so forth. But then again, when you see that the people he surrounds himself, who are the same melanin as us, but we have to remember, not all skin folk is kinfolk, and the fact of how they act around him, the clergy that were basically, kissing his ring, the black staff that he had, part of his cabinet as well, who are allowing him to talk in these degrading ways about black people. All that did was fuel him more because he felt he had a support. The Blacks for Trumps, who we found out were getting paid $125 an hour, just to show up. These are people he had.
Don't forget Diamond and Silk while you're at it, right? Remember Diamond and Silk.
Okay. You talked about, Anthony, the mural that was painted in front of the Tower. My question to you is, how do you respond to the defacing of the murals?
Ooh, man, I could say, the woman who painted it black, I think that was in California, she kind of did us a favor because all you had to do was highlight the background now, and and it being, the blackness of that mural will now stand out. She also did us a favor of allowing herself now to be charged with a hate crime, so that's one less bigot, within the realm. What happened in front of Trump Tower, the figure, that person did it out of hate. The people who were recording, I wish they'd done something more than to say, hey, we're recording you. But then also the NYPD officers who are stationed over there, they could have done something as well too. But it shows the amount of privilege that's allowed. Because if I did that, let's say there was a Blue Lives Matter mural on the ground, and I did that, I'll be tackled, tased, beaten, knee on my neck. So we have to understand what privilege and this self-entitlement that comes in when it comes to the white people in our society. But also we have to understand that if words trigger them like that, we have to understand the fact that how much us pushing forward is going to trigger them as well. But we cannot allow ourselves to slow down or be silenced. We just keep moving forward, and we keep moving forward louder and stronger.
Yeah.
You talked about trigger, and you use that term, trigger. Lots of people are saying, and Professor Wallace, I want you to respond to this. This upsurge of violence in Brooklyn, and they're saying that Black Lives Matter people trigger that. How do you respond to that, Professor Wallace?
Well, it's hard to it's hard to respond to the absurd, because it is obvious that there is no connection between anybody who shoots a 1-year-old child and the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, by even trying to respond to it, you dignify the charge, that it comes from some place of logic. Okay, you hear that from the some of the leadership of the NYPD. You hear it from the Sergeants Benevolent Association. It's let us just say it's just not true. Okay, it's like trying to argue about gravity. Okay, we have in our community, as in every community in the world, we have people who are, for the lack of a better word, bad actors. People who, we have a sociopath in the White House, but he's not the only sociopath in the world. We have sociopaths in our community who don't care about anybody. And so whether it's Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter or, Save the Planet, they don't care. Okay. And so, this and the Black Lives Matter movement didn't liberate them. They were doing this before, just doing it now. And I don't think any, right-thinking person or any person who cares about humanity would even begin to defend their actions. But to connect them to the Black Lives Matter movement is foul. It's obscene. And but we, what's the expression? I see what you're doing. Okay, you're trying to delegitimize the Black Lives Matter movement and what it stands for by connecting it to sociopathic activity. It's just not. You can't argue with stupid. Okay, but you can call it out.
What do you take? And we've got just 3 minutes left. What do you take of Trump's call for schools to be reopened? And I'm going to throw this first at you, Professor Forde, since you are in the educational system, and then I'm coming to you, Anthony.
Sure. Real quick. Yes. I teach at Medgar College. We want to be with our students come September, certainly, but we do not want our students to die. I mean, it is just kind of, there's really a binary kind of situation. Donald Trump, sociopath that he is, does not care about death rates, doesn't care about sickness rates. Obviously, faculty are older than our students, and some of us would be in at-risk categories. We have to be, education cannot take place in an unsafe environment. Okay, and so, I trust the professionals. I trust people who believe in science to come up with the best strategy for how we go forward. You can't listen to Donald Trump when your life is at stake.
Anthony, Mr. Trump has said in defense of the Confederate flags and the Confederate signals remaining where they are, and we've only got a minute left, but he's saying they're protected under freedom of speech. I want to hear your response to that.
All right. I was in the Marine Corps, and a lot of people in my unit were from that era of Confederacy. They worship it. We tore down all their flags. Same way I tell people now, tear down all their symbols of hate. Though that is not anything that is protected underneath any type of constitutional right. Because if you look at the fact of when each of these symbols came about, it came about after the murder of many of our leaders. It came about after the suppression and oppression of many of our people. So we're taking back what is ours. We're taking back our dignity. We're taking away their symbols of hate. And if the local elected officials in each of these cities won't do it, the people will continue to do it. We will remove everybody from Columbus all the way to Thomas Jefferson himself.
Yeah, just keep in mind that it's against the law to fly a swastika flag in Germany. Okay, it's just absolutely, it's against the law. You will go to prison flying a swastika flag. And so the notion that you can fly a flag of treason in the United States without consequence is bizarre in and of itself, and is rooted in racism.
Very hypocritical of the U.S. to allow it.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Anthony Beckford and CUNY Professor Wallace Forde. Thank you for being on Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for
pleasure,
that.
my pleasure.
I know we
Thank
will
you.
be continuing this conversation, and the Black Lives Movement is not going anywhere.
Nope.
And if we listen to your president, he ain't going anywhere yet.
Yet.
So, yet.
Soon come, soon come.
Okay. In about 2 minutes, you'll meet a Brooklyn student who is an academic achiever. Please ask middle and high school students you know to tune in now to Brooklyn 45, while Reggie Brown is giving his report that he calls Wake Up.
Thank you, Sam. The year 2020 has seen its fair share of major historical events, from the acquittal of 45 in his impeachment trial to the death of NBA legend Kobe Bryant. The worldwide rapid spread of COVID-19 and the Australian bushfires, which burned 46 million acres, killed 34 people and possibly 1 billion animals. A gunman opened fires in a bar, killing 9 people in a racially motivated attack, not in New York, but in Germany. And the words from so many years ago from Congressman John Lewis still echoes today.
We are tired. We are tired of being beaten by policemen. We're tired of seeing our people locked up in jail over and over again. And then you holler, be patient. How long can we be patient?
Thank you, Reggie. And now we go to Alonta Right On, and she's sitting with another Brooklyn young academic achiever.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, and we are fortunate today to have our academic achiever, Miss Jordan Milar, joining us today. Jordan is a multi-year straight A student who's entering grade 9 at Poly Prep in Brooklyn, New York this fall. Welcome to Brooklyn 45, Jordan.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. So let's dig right in so we can celebrate you. So, like me, you are a product of the New York City school system, is that right?
Yes.
So could you tell us about some of the classes you've taken in school and which of those are your favorite subjects and why?
So in school, I have taken English, history, Latin, advanced Spanish, advanced geometry, and biology. And out of all of those classes, my favorites are English, Latin, and Spanish. And so I've always loved English because I'm really interested in journalism and writing. And so English allows me to pursue those interests. And I also love Spanish because it's one of the top languages in the world. And I think that it's really important to know how to interact and communicate with people in other ways. And I love Latin because even though people often consider it to be sort of a dead language, I feel like Latin is very useful, and I've learned a lot through taking it.
Absolutely. I wish more students were able to take Latin in their schools. It is critical. It's an SAT plus. So how do you approach academics? How do you approach academics and it shows that you're such an excellent student? How do you approach that?
Well, I try to approach all of my academic work with a ton of effort because I think that when you put 100% effort into everything that you do, you often get the results that you want. And I always take pride in my work, and even in my free time, I like to study so I can get ahead. And there's always room for improvement, and I love to challenge myself to get even better.
Mm-hmm. So when you challenge yourself, what do you do to challenge yourself?
Well, to challenge myself, that can look very different depending on the day, but sometimes that may just be doing some extra reading or doing some extra math problems, whatever the case may be.
Okay, great. I like that. So we also understand that you have been extremely busy and active. You're an extremely active individual over the years in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Can you share some of your greatest accomplishments to date with us? And what have you been pursuing lately?
Well, some of my greatest accomplishments have come with my composing, which I've been doing since the 4th grade. I take composing classes at Lincoln Center with the New York Philharmonic, and one of my greatest accomplishments was I wrote a special piece called Boogie Down Uptown for the Philharmonic that was performed by the entire orchestra, and it was performed in all of the major parks across each of the 5 boroughs in the city. And that was really exciting because it was my first time doing such a big project like that, and it's always just been something that I really have loved. And another huge accomplishment of mine was that I gave a TED Talk last year on the art of composing, which was a really unique experience for me because, of course, I'd never given a TED Talk before, but it was really fun to sort of introduce other people to the idea of composing and what it takes to be a composer, and also learn about some of the other different subjects regarding the TED Talks that were given that day. And also earlier last year, I won an award from the ASCAP Foundation for my piece, Boogie Down Uptown. So that was really exciting also.
Well, that's fabulous, Jordan. Could you tell us about some of your pieces?
So one of my major pieces, of course, was Boogie Down Uptown, which was a jazz piece inspired by the Harlem Renaissance. And that was the first major piece that I have ever written. And another really important piece that I wrote was for the New World Symphony, which was a different orchestra aside from the New York Philharmonic. And that piece was titled, I believe it was The Enchanted Castle. And that piece was performed live with the ensemble playing, which was really exciting. And the most recent piece that I wrote was an arrangement of We Shall Overcome. And it was supposed to be performed by the entire orchestra earlier this year. But due to the pandemic, that wasn't possible. So they decided to do it virtually. But it was still really empowering and fun to do.
Wow. How old are you?
I'm 13 years old.
So how did you get into composing?
Well, I got into composing about 5 years ago. I started taking classes at PS11, and I didn't really think much of it at first, but over time I started getting really into composing, and I started taking the main class up at Lincoln Center, and then from there I just started writing more and more pieces, and each time I've been enhancing my skills and getting more comfortable with it.
Wow, that's fabulous. That's awesome. TED Talk, composing, on my bucket list, TED Talk. Don't know what I'll talk about, but it's on my bucket list. So with all of your success thus far, I am sure time management is something that you had to have really honed in on. So with your high grade point average and how you've excelled in your extracurricular activities, how are you able to do this all simultaneously?
Well, I can't say that it's been completely easy, but one of the best ways that I find to manage my time is keeping a calendar always, whether it's on my phone or on paper, and that will usually help me match my schoolwork with my extracurriculars.
I think that's great. Any tips for incoming high school students, incoming middle school students? Just a quick tip that you want to leave?
I would say that it's really important, no matter what, to put 100% effort into everything that you do, whether it's inside or outside the classroom. And even if you have free time, it's never really free time, and you can always study more or just practice.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for gracing us with your success and your excellence. We're inspired by you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. So I am Alonta Rydon. And back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Alonta. And now we move on to our next session, or closing session, with Dondre Bullock.
Brooklyn 45 is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and we welcome your support. Check out our website, brooklyn45.com. Post your comments on our Facebook, facebook.com/brooklyn45tv. And if you've got any topics you think we should be covering, shoot me an email over at brooklyn45tv@gmail.com. Thank you for watching. I'm Dondre.
Thank you, Dondre. And I'm asking you to send him, please send him an email. Send the email to brooklyn45tv@gmail, and Dondre will be listening out for you. He'll be watching out for you, and he wants to hear from you. Our Brooklyn 45 team hopes our program has been useful to you, has been inspiring, has been valuable, and we want to welcome your support. We welcome your support. On behalf of our Brooklyn 45 team, I'm Sam Tate.